Welcome, Football Stalkers. Welcome, Football Stalkers, in another edition where we discuss PSL matters with the football brains in this country. I am joined by Goitsilwe, I am joined by Nhlanla, I am joined by Alex. I will let them introduce themselves. Alex, let's go, Baba. Let's go. Introduce yourself.
Hey, Alex, lana njani bafethu?
Itada.
See?
Chocho.
Nhlanla, let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Nhlanla lona uLuke Bheka staunch Buccaneer supporter ngikhona nami in the house. Good evening, gents.
Away. Goitsilwe, let's go.
Baleseng Goitsilwe from Wuhan, South Africa.
But if people don't know, Goitsilwe is a Vets fan, so that's why.
National.
No, but thanks guys for joining the discussion. So we'll continue from where we left off. Now we know that when it comes to the PSL, that an announcement was made that we can return to training. Clubs can return to training after they adhere to certain procedures that were prescribed by the PSL. Now we hear that certain clubs, or let's say smaller clubs and clubs at the Glad Africa Championship, are struggling with the cost of having to conduct regular tests and having to appoint a compliance officer. I don't know, guys. Given that, do we think that the PSL will carry on if clubs are already complaining about the cost of conducting these?
And the PSL, don't they have a fund or something whereby they deal with all the teams that are participating? Because I'm hearing there's a club that's training. I'm very sure they could afford to do those tests. And then if you find a young Limpopo team there, I won't mention the name, but it went green. You know their pockets are not as deep as a Soweto-based big club that can afford to. The PSL should fund these tests because it's at the end of the day, it's illegal. Like if I'm going to work, at work they fund my testing, my preliminary whatnot, and PPE equipment. That's how I feel about it. Yes, also taking care about it.
If we look at let's say I can understand you saying that the PSO should be the one fitting the bill, né? But now if we look at let's say other leagues that are doing the same procedure as that we plan, clubs are the ones that are conducting these tests. Clubs are the ones that are fitting the bill when it comes to this. But doesn't that then highlight the fact that clubs are either being underpaid in participating in the PSL, or clubs are misusing the funds that they're getting or revenues that they're getting from the PSL?
You see, the clubs, even the clubs themselves are like they are employers of these players. So if they want to carry on with the operations, they must fund the testing of their employees, which are the players in this place.
Because
But the issue now, have they been getting their grants for the first 3 months?
yeah, but now you see the thing is Nama grants, and that's why I'm asking the question. With regards to, like, I remember listening to a podcast where a former Vets manager was saying that to run a club a year you need about 40 million. Ne? We know that clubs are getting 2.5 million per month. Ne? So and we know of the financial problems that clubs are in. Now, the problem that they're already in, is it not because the clubs are not necessarily, how can I put this? Then it's this whole question of, are they spending more than what they have? or are they literally above or below their means? Because if we're using the same concept that where a proposal was sent to FIFA, assuming that the other leagues did the same thing, one can assume that we more or less using probably the same proposal as other leagues that are already currently playing, where it's the responsibility of the clubs to conduct these tests. Because remember, the testing is not a one-off thing. So there's going to be a continuous of testing that will go on from the PSL whenever there's game scheduled, in terms of going to camp and all those things. So if clubs are now complaining that it's expensive, because look, we can see that the cost of having to conduct all these tests is not something that everybody planned. It's something that it's new to all of us, even to clubs. So you cannot obviously see this kind of cost, but it's a cost that's there. But now, how do we then move forward as clubs? Do you think that it's as simple as PSL must pay clubs to conduct these tests and whatnot?
No, the PSL cannot take responsibility for funding the testing of the players. As much as I was telling you that each and every team is serving as an employer of these players, and the players themselves are the employees. So like everyone else in the working industry, the employer taking the responsibility of the testing of the employees. So the clubs also, they must take responsibilities of their players. If they want to continue with operations, they must test their players as required by the PSL. Otherwise, PSL will be spending more than enough to test each and every individual. You got teams that has got 40 players and the teams that's got 20 players. You see, now the team with 40 players, how much must PSL lose or spend in that team? There's the other team they're gonna spend only for 20 players. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that is the advantage of the smaller teams to test their players. They got a few squad. The one who decided to have 40 players must take responsibilities to test his 40 squad regularly. It must not be the PSL problem to test players.
Alex,
Chop it.
what's in about?
Yeah, I think maybe what needs to be done is the teams themselves, they need to pay for the testing cost of the players, because PSL is already giving the teams whatever grant of money they're giving to them. So they must make sure that they carry out the test and make sure that everyone is tested, because PSL is already giving them money. So as to what they do with the money, whether maybe they're paying their own salaries to players, maybe some are getting higher money, PSL has nothing to do with that. So they must make sure that the tests are done so that we can continue with our soccer, because now there's a delay. If maybe they're going to cry that it is costly to test players, whereas they've been given money. So the teams must make sure that they test their own players, and let's get on with the business of the day, which is playing soccer.
So now let's now make an example. Let's say a Polokwane seat in this case as an example. Let's say they are able to conduct these tests regularly to a point where they're saying they don't have any more money. What do you think should be done? Because I can only assume that it's going to affect the PSL moving forward, because we need every club to participate in the, I think it's about 54 games remaining. So now if you now have a club that's not conducting these tests, what do you think will happen? Is that going to halt everything that we need to do as a PSL, or is the PSL going to step in where, I don't know, where they give them some form of credit or some sort? I don't know. What do you guys think will happen if a club says we don't have money to conduct these tests anymore?
I think maybe that's where what's this guy's name? Natim Toyota needs to come in. I don't know if maybe there's a relief for that they must get in terms of if maybe clubs are failing financially. But I think maybe something that the department like your Natim Toyota will need to look into the matter, maybe suffer as well. But something needs to be done, because we cannot resume and then stop at some stage because some can't afford to test players. So Natim Tetwa, if maybe there's a relief fund that needs to be released to certain clubs or to assist, they must make sure that they come on board and make sure that we go and play all the games that are remaining.
Okay. Any more comments before we move on?
Yeah, like something like Ngati, like a loan, a testing loan, if you want to put it like that, because at some point there's a deadline. We must go back to football. So if a young Polokwane City tests can afford to test, and Baroka can test at the same time, then we all not going back there. Then it was money wasted from Polokwane to be able to test, whereas it's going to be declared null and void. So what PSL can do, probably have a loan scheme. We give you this, get your players tested by the 15th of July. We start our football.
But
then from there, after that,
But another problem with that is that EPSL itself, at this point on, they don't have money as well. That's why it's important for them to finish off the season. So I don't think they're probably in a position to start any kind of loans to any clubs. But we'll see. I mean, look, we as supporters, we want the game to continue and conclude. So we hope that there is some kind of plan, because this is a concern that's already out there at the moment. So the PSL can't then later on claim that they were not aware. So it's something that they need to plan for right now, to say if a club is in a position of not being able to conduct these tests because of cost, then what is the plan to mitigate that? But anyway, let's move on to the transfer market, guys. So we are aware that because the season will resume and until it's concluded, the transfer market is closed. But we know that there are some dealings going on with Goitsilwe's club and and Nhlanhla's clubs, and who knows if Alex's club as well is involved. We don't know what's going to happen with the bet that we have.
But Alex club must be banned.
So I mean, the transfer market. What can we anticipate? What movements do we expect to see from players across the PSL, or even outside the PSL? Let me start with Goitsilwe. Goitsilwe, come on, let's go. Where are your players going? Are they staying or are they leaving?
No, it was alleged that some players have signed with Nhlanhla's team. And if they have signed, they should have been commencing their contract with Nhlanhla's team from the beginning of July. But I don't see anybody going out of the squad. Like Maluleke has left already because his contract started on the 1st of July. So those that they said they will be leaving, some will be joining Pito, some will have to join Nhlanhla's team, but nobody has left yet. So I don't know if the players will be able to leave now or when are they going to leave. So in PSL it's confusing. I can tell you that maybe nobody is going to leave. But since the league has not ended yet, I cannot say the players are going to leave. Those who are supposed to leave have left already, like Maluleke. What about the others?
Yeah, I think with if we follow the calendar and the FIFA rules in this case, so because of the COVID-19, the transfer market has been pushed to when the league concludes. So with George Maluleke's case, it's a bit of a difficult one because his contract was already ending with Kaizer Chiefs, and Kaizer Chiefs did not opt to extend his contract to the remaining, let's say, weeks or month to conclude the season. So they're like, no, George, you can go. So with George Maluleke's case, I think it's a special and a different case. Whereas if we look at Vets on the other hand, let's look at Tyson, for instance. Tyson last season extended his contract with Bidvest Vets. So his contract is supposed to expire in the next 3 years or so. So in his case, if he's to go to another club, he will have to then wait for the off season when the transfer market is open for a club to come and buy. So, I mean, if we talk about discussion, I think discussions, as much as there's certain rules about if you can't talk to a player without having to talk to the club first. But we know practicality is that players and coaches, they speak before a club officially approaches a club to talk about a player's services. So I guess we'll see where Wits players will end up once the season concludes, because look, names were being thrown. Tulani, Mutupa, Domingos, Tlanti, Mkwanazi, who else did I? Munari. So part of the Wits team,
both of the goalkeepers are gonna score own goals.
Because I mean, let me ask you, Alex. Alex, what do you think will happen between Wits and Chiefs when they play? Do you think that Wits, or let's rather say Gavin Hunt and the players themselves, do you think that it will be the same kind of Wits that we've seen the past season, or will we see a deflated Wits?
I don't think it will be the same, man. I mean, you playing and then knowing that your team has already been sold. Now your state of mind is not the same, knowing that I will remain. So players are playing now not knowing exactly as to what will happen, whether some will move to Limpopo, maybe they'll have to find a team to stay within Gauteng, but I don't think it will be the same Wits. But if soccer was to resume tomorrow, I'd say bring on Wits, because I don't think they'll be the same. We can play them even tomorrow. It's fine. And before next week Wednesday, I don't think they will give us problems, because their mentality, man. I mean, not knowing what's going to happen to you tomorrow, you won't be the same as yesterday. So I don't think they'll be the same.
So Nhlanhla, let me ask you. So when I'm sure you are looking for the league to end now, so you can get your defense sorted out, or so you can go and take players at Wits there.
Unfortunately, no. I don't like running away from these kind of situations. I want us, because Zimbabwe was coming along. When he was coming. English is
Nah, it's fine, Baba.
he was coming along well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically, I'd like us to finish the season and start fresh. It wouldn't make any sense for a season not to finish. We want to see where we end the season after the 30 games, so that we can basically look at progress. A season that ends up rapidly like this, I don't think I'd be cool with it. If Chiefs go on to win it, though I doubt, it must come back. Last day, I want to laugh the whole.
Okay.
What is it that you already have 6 points from Wits?
Yeah?
We already have 6 points from Wits.
Hey, yeah.
No, Wits will surprise you, because
you think about this,
because you guys are going to be complacent. One, The second one, these boys are going to be looking to play for their contracts and look to be scouted here in Gauteng. So they're going to play their hearts out. Don't be fooled by what. They saw TTM wants to offer 20,000 a month. He knows, okay, if I go to Cape Town City, I will get a bump. Let me play these last few games. Vets will take Chiefs to the rafters.
I will remind you.
Okay. So
are they playing for contracts now? Now they're not playing for Vets.
So okay, guys. Now there's been talks about certain teams spending more than what they have. Sundowns, teams that are struggling financially. So what possibility do we have in the PSL of introducing a financial fair play? And in doing so, is that then going to expose teams for spending above their means? Or Is it going to be a situation? Because we must remember, with the introduction of the FIFA Fair Play, what would then mean is that clubs need to then submit financial statements to the PSL, highlighting what they're spending and how much they're getting. But what needs to also be done is the auditing side of things. You know, if we look at clubs overseas are listed companies. So as a listed company, you do submit, or you do publish your comprehensive financial statements, so that not only the league where the team is playing, but also even us interested parties, we can see what goes on there. Do you think it's something possible for the PSL to have a financial fair play in the league? Goitsilwe, let's go.
It should have been adopted a long time ago if it was something that they are looking into it. Because I think it's the responsibility of SAFA, I think it's the responsibility of SAFA to who's the affiliate of FIFA to look into it, that the PSL is complying with the financial fair play. But it was never looked into here in South Africa. I think it's only affecting overseas teams here in Africa as a whole. It was never looked into, and then it was never enforced. So it is a responsibility of SAFA to look into PSL if they are complying with the financial.
But I need to add that the financial fair play, it's a UEFA policy. So it's not necessarily a FIFA policy where it needs to be enforced everywhere by leagues. But it's a UEFA thing that was introduced. The main aim of the financial fair play was that to avoid teams spending more than what they have, to make sure that the sustainability of clubs is enforced, because you have rich owners coming in who are spending money, but it's not the club's money. So that's why we're having discussion in saying, is it something that as South Africa, not necessarily maybe Africa, because we don't know when something like that will be implemented or if it will, but as South Africa, is it something that it needs to be drafted and be a policy for us? Alex?
So I think it needs to be a policy. It needs to be done, simply because you don't want to find yourself in a position where you're having money being injected into a team and you don't know the source of income as to what is that money for. So to bring in a fair play, let's have everything documented, and let's have that policy being used in the PSL. Simply because what's happening now with fraud and whatever, you might find that there are other people who might want to clean their money using the club. So whatever money that is being used with the clubs or whatever, it needs to make sure that the money is from whatever source of income that is a legal source of income that can be accepted also in the PSL. So I think that policy needs to be, not sooner or later, it needs to be enforced as soon as possible. So just to make sure that even clubs don't spend amount that they don't have. Just make sure that clubs don't promise players money which they don't have, because at the end of the day, you find clubs in a position where others are getting less, while clubs are taking money, paying the likes of your affiliate. Just making an example. So let's just make sure that we have fair play in making sure that we know where the money is coming from, we know where the money is going. Simple.
Nhlanhla.
Yeah, hey, that's a tricky one, because now also with our league, you must know, Uchi, these big salaries are quite a new thing actually with our league. For an example, at Sundowns he was earning 90,000 that best season that he had when he went on Metro FM with his agent. This big money thing is a new thing in our league, so it would be very, the policy by implement, it would be very tricky as to implement it to work 100%, because we all know it's only one team that's big spenders.
It's not only one team.
It's only one team.
How much did it cost for Erasmus?
No, the thing is,
No,
the thing is,
Erasmus. How much did it cost to Erasmus from SuperSport to Pirates? It's not only one team that is doing this.
We're not saying our teams don't do it. We do pay big salaries, but because our records are spoken about, there's no transfer fees. It's only speculation. There's no transfer fees. There's no cost for guy. Even right now, we can speculate that Happy Chele ends at 150,000 a month. No one knows that for sure. You understand?
No, but the financial fair play deals too much with the transfers, not the players' salaries.
Yeah, it actually does. So basically, what happens with the financial fair play is that they look at transfer fees. Basically, in simple terms, let's just say the money you're getting and the money you're spending. And your spending comes from spending on paying salaries, on buying players. So not only players, but even staff members, maintenance of stadiums, all those things. So the cost that the club incurs against the money that they're receiving. So, like, if the reason why I would slightly disagree with Nhlanhla in saying I hear what he's saying, that it's one team that's overspending and stuff, but I would say probably even the smaller clubs, one would say that they're doing that, because if we look at, let's say, the whole policy, because it's there for sustainability of clubs, where you have maybe, let's say a small club should at least have a budget of about 30 to 40 million a year. How much are they getting from the PSL? And how come that every season we are hearing that clubs are struggling financially? Why are you struggling financially? What are you doing with the money that you're receiving that is supposed to be money going into the operation of the team, from staff, from players? Because then you have situations where probably a club will take a player which maybe they can't even afford. I'll give an example. Golden Arrows at one point had Dikhache come back to play for them. Now the question is, how much were they paying Dikhache? How much was Renelo Letsoloñane being paid at SuperSport, at Highlands Park? So it's those things where we need to, because at the end of the day, all these clubs, apart from wanting to be in the top 8, some clubs are fighting for relegation. They want to remain in the PSL. So some are trying to attract Ndoro. I mean, Ndoro is playing for Highlands Park. How much are they paying him? You see, so yeah, I would say that probably we need to include the small clubs as well, in saying that maybe these clubs are also going after maybe not the high profile players, but players that one would assume that they're not earning peanuts, they're earning big monies, but they're there. So how are they working?
With Celtics' situation as well, you see how they basically went bankrupt, but without high-profile players as such. I won't do so much. Okay, they played for Pirates, but it's not a salary that would bankrupt you necessarily. So that also goes to show, somehow that money that they get in doesn't just take care of that club. It goes outside and deals with other things that it's not supposed to. So these audits, audits are really needed to be done by the PSL, basically, because now the buying of the statuses comes from lack of managing these funds well. Because the Celtics were selling because of funds, Now, if it's your nangas no bas, about 20 million, the PSL club costs about 70 million, especially one that's 99 years old. So that one's a dodgy one that must be looked at. Ipulukwane City, apparently they were selling. Highlands Park apparently is selling. So it comes now to the question, Ubusi, are these funds that are given to these guys well managed? Forget about the salaries now. Basically, the injection that comes in, is it doing what the football club is basically for? Because they get the grant from the PSL. Does it go channel to other places? And because I don't understand how a club can just go bankrupt. Like Benny, you are paying normal salaries, you're using it doesn't make sense at all.
Because we need to also look at the part that even managers and CEOs of those clubs are probably being paid more than because if we look at dynamics of clubs, guys, we are likely to see players probably earning more than coaches, earning more than staff members generally. But it seems as though it's the other way around in certain clubs, where the CEOs and all those are the ones earning more than the players or the coaches and whatnot. And again, there's no transparency in how much are these guys being paid, because maybe they're being paid way over than what the club should. I'll give another example of what they have in the United States. So in the United States, the women's league is the biggest in the world. Now, what they have there, they have a wage cap. So they have a minimum and a maximum depending on how much a club is getting. So you can't pay somebody over that. So that is also part of their fair play, sort of. So do you think that it's something that will be accepted here in the PSL as forming part of the policy for the fair play? Or it's something that will be rejected?
Alex?
I think it will form a fair play. We need to get that policy running, guys, as soon as possible, because we don't want to see ourselves in a position where each and every 3 years there's a team that is being sold. What will happen to those fans in Bloemfontein? So where must those fans go now? Because there's no longer a team. So if there's transparency, and then what Ivan is saying about where you have a wage scale, saying that you need to pay players from here to here, I think that policy will work, because at the end of the day, you knowing that you're working with what you have. You're not working with what you don't have, because at the end of the day, you're paying someone more money, whereas there are players which are not being paid. And players are the ones who are going into the field and making sure that the club is seen, the club is getting revenues, whereas those people are not being paid. You have a CEO whom I don't know what they're doing in the office. They're not getting any sponsors. There are teams in the PSL that don't have sponsors, but their CEOs are getting more money. So let's have that transparency. Let's know as to, just give us a scale. We don't want to know exactly as to how much you are being paid, but let's have a scale. Let's have a transparency to say that, okay, guys, this is what the club has. This is who and who is getting. And then I don't think we'll have a problem in having clubs that are being sold, because now it's things of selling clubs, guys. It's not on. We can't keep going where clubs are being sold each and every 3 years. I mean, that's not on.
Goitsilwe?
That one we will never survive it. We will always have people, club owners selling clubs. But you are right, we must have this financial fair play in the PSL. But how long will it take, we don't know. But also, the small clubs, even the player salaries, it doesn't always mean that when a player moves from Pirates to Sundowns, he's going with the same salary or the salary bigger than the one he was getting at Sundowns. Belembe took a pay cut to go to base because he wanted to play. others are taking the pay cuts from a bigger team to the other to the small team. So it's not like the player continues on the same salary that he's getting on the other team he was getting at. They are taking the pay cuts. Their salaries are fluctuating. There is not the same salary year after year because the team also has a huge expenditure. There's traveling fees, and then there's got the hotel fees and all those balls and the net, everything. So you will say the money that they are getting from the PSL is only for player salaries. Then the owner has to fork money from his pocket out for the management of the team. That one that is coming from the PSL is for the salaries. So that's why each and every team has to have a sponsor in order to fulfill all the management of the team to be in the PSL. Other than that, we will always have somebody selling the team because what? Also, the person who establishes the team, like Brian Joff retired at 2017, and then Alan Feldman has to come in from 2017 to now because Joff will feel like he's old. He cannot run the team or cannot run the company itself bit best as it is. So in this kind of situations, like now, it's pity that we have to talk about Mr. Mike Mokoena. He's late now. He tried to sell Free Stars a year before. His deal also failed at the PSL, remember. So we have got a person who was so soccer fanatic like Mr. Mike Mokoena, and then he's late, and then there is a Free Stars that is still playing in the PSL or in the Glad Africa. It's no longer run by the person who established it, who had that vision of keeping the team in the professional ranks. Who must keep that team in the professional rank if he's no more?
Oh, well, what's clear is that the sustainability of because look, guys, we can speak about Hellenic, we can speak about Free State Stars, we can speak about Witbank Spurs, or all these teams have history. And what we don't want to see is find ourselves in a situation where clubs are going to become non-existent because they were not financially managed properly. And because they were not financially managed properly is because there was not a policy to guard against that, to make sure that teams are adhering to the rules. And I think probably another thing is, guys, maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like sometimes the conflict of interest that we have with regards to people who are club owners and also in the PSL board it's causing such a situation where there are certain things that they can't touch because it would cause a ripple effect in disturbing a number of things. And hence, we are in a situation where things are untouched. Let's go with what we know or what we've known. So, given this, it limits us in terms of improvement as a league, where us as supporters, we would like to see the game progress. We need to see ourselves elevating to higher heights. But there are certain things that are holding us back. But I don't know. Let me ask you this one-word answer. The financial fair play, is it something that we'll see in the PSL?
No. No.
No, it's fine. No, let's move. Okay, so a proposal was made that there are provinces that were suggested. We heard about the Northwest, we heard about Gauteng, and we heard about a last-minute proposal by KZN to host the 54 remaining games. Where do we think that the remaining 54 games will be hosted? Do you think it's going to go to KZN, considering that the infection rate has lowered compared to what Gauteng is experiencing at the moment, and their death toll as well is lower? And the fact that KZN, winter there, it's much more favorable as compared to here in Gauteng, where it's a bit colder, but there it's at least warmer.
Yeah, you see with KZN basically it has facilities to host all of these teams. No question about that. And basically, but KZN also, I get it, it's a tourist destination and whatnot. So they've got enough ample space to house these people separate from, let's say, the epicenter, Yako KZN, wherever that is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd basically vouch for KZN because even the stadium infrastructure is quite good. So it wouldn't be an issue for KZN.
Okay. Alex?
I think for the same reason, okay, I don't know the reason why Moses Mabhida has been getting finals, but I think this one will definitely go to KZN because they've always been getting games. But besides that, I think they also have the infrastructure to host the remaining games. So I think this one will definitely go to KZN without a doubt.
Yeah, because
and Moses Mabhida's Chiefs' home ground, so you also have the advantage.
Well, the thing is, I get it. We with regards to finals forever being hosted at Moses Mabhida, I think it's more of a bid because I think what the PSL have been doing is they've been allowing municipalities to bid. So from what we hear, Moses Mabhida is the one that comes with a bigger bid, and that's why they forever being hosted there. But anyway, but Goitsilwe, I don't know. What do you think? Do you also believe that KZN is the best place to finish off this season?
If we're looking at the resources they have, is the best place to host it. But if we're looking into the infection rate of the COVID-19, you got the Northwest, you got Northern Cape, you got Mpumalanga. But if we look at the resources, KZN has got the resources and their towns, Pietermaritzburg and Durban itself, they each got stadiums which are closer to each other, and then they are good to play professional football. Yeah, but if we're talking about COVID-19, you got 3 provinces, which is Northwest, Northern Cape, and Mpumalanga.
So
I'll give it to KZN based on the resources that they have.
So now if we let's now in this case say that KZN seems to be the one that's in favor, considering that look, not excluding the provinces that you mentioned, Mpumalanga, Northwest, Northern Cape, that the infection rate, if we compare the infection rate to the Western Cape and Gauteng, they're better off. But now, how do you think then the PSL will work around which team plays where and what? Because as much as we can say, there's Moses Mabhida, there's Harry Kwala, there's what's that? Princess Mahoho, and then there's Chatsworth, and then there's the King's Wulitile, right? And then there's King's Park. So then, how do you then work out which team plays or which games play at which stadium? Because
we got 16 teams. We got 16 teams now. And then the 16 teams, which means it's 8 games a day. If it's Saturday and Sunday or Wednesday and Thursday or Tuesday and Wednesday, which means 8 games can play in Saturday. And then we're gonna have a 1 game at Moses Mabhida, 1 game at Harry Gwala at 3 o'clock. That is the first 2 games. And then we got the 1 game also that's gonna play at night at the same Moses Mabhida. 1 game that is gonna play at same Harry Gwala 8 o'clock. That is 4 games. So we put also other 2 stadiums that are there to can host also 2 games a day, 2 games a day, which means we need 4 stadiums. And then those stadiums, KZN stadiums are not far from each other to such extent that we can say no, the other one will have to travel more than 200 kilos to go and play. So which means if teams are flying to KZN or they're based in KZN, they know that they're going to play at KZN, all of them, they're going to finish Saturday and Sunday, all 16 games. And then it same applies to Tuesday and Wednesday, all 16 games, 2 games in 1 stadium, same day.
But I hear what you're saying. But now, what I'm asking, Ne, is, I'll give an example. So Vets is supposed to play Kaizer Chiefs, Ne? How do you then decide that game be played at Moses Mabhida or at Herigwala or at Kings Park? Or because the reality is, as much as they say those stadiums adhering to the PSL standard of a playable stadium, né? But we know they're different. The quality of Moses Mabhida is not the same as Herigwala. So then how do you then decide which game plays at which stadium? Because I'll give an example. Now, let's say Orlando Pirates plays all their games at Moses Mabhida. Some clubs would for sure complain about it and say, why is Pirates playing at Moses Mabhida and not us? So how will PSL...
And Pirates will always come to these ones.
So how do you then...
In this case, you have to... This time around, not everything is not in our control. You have to sacrifice and compromise. You see? In this case, we have to sacrifice and compromise. Pirates will play in Moses Mabhida, and they will not play all their 6 games at Moses Mabhida. They will have to play one in Moses Mabhida, one in Herigwala, one in Princess Magogo, and the other one in the other stadium, which makes 4 games.
It must rotate.
They cannot be based at Moses Mabhida all 6 games, because we are left with 6 games, I think, to finish the league. Or 8 games.
Nhlanhla, what do you say about?
Yeah, 6 games.
Yeah, like you see, there's how many stadiums? 4 or 5, ne?
It's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7 stadiums. Yeah, even brilliant. You just play one game at those stadiums, basically. You rotate these things. Basically, you have a calendar whereby you have Herigwala, you have Moses Mabhida 2nd game, you have Princess Magogo 3rd game, and so on. Basically, because there's still teams that are on 20 games, 21 games.
Yeah. So we're looking at there are teams that are left with 9, some 8, but majority I would say they're left with about 7, 6 games.
You see, so basically that also goes now with the home and away.
Yeah.
The home and away advantage, basically, if you played at Moses Mabhida and your next away game is against Chiefs that has to play at Moses Mabhida the next time, then you go back to Moses Mabhida. I get we're going down with that. Basically, the home team takes rotates the stadium. The away team, they go to the stadium, even if you've been there previously, or if you're still going there as your home game the next game. But because of the home team must be given that priority of rotating the stadium initially.
Okay, all right. Okay, Alex is coming in. Let's hear what Alex is saying about this. Alex, so yeah, what's your comment with regards to how the PSL needs to work around having to have some form of rotation where certain teams must not be playing in one stadium or so? How do you think they should work around it, or do you think it's not a problem if one team plays in one stadium?
I think they need to work on a rotation. Like Goitsilwe was saying that Devon Stadium are not too far apart, so it will also give players that fresh air. You know, being stuck in one place can be sometimes a bit of a problem. So at least if you know that today we're playing here and tomorrow we go in there, it gives you at least maybe that fresh air for you to, you know, get that fresh air, because being stuck in one place, man, sometimes it can be a problem. So doing that in KZN, I don't think it will be a problem, because from Devon to maybe KwaMashu, it's only about 30 minutes drive. So also seeing the outside world and then doing the rotation, I think it will work, because playing in a one stadium, you'd have teams like, I won't mention names, but we've seen some in Soweto derbies end up putting things in the goalpost, so they won't have time to do the shift, maybe the rotation. So
But it's behind closed doors. There are no supporters. There won't be supporters.
Maybe the trauma of what happened previously.
There are no supporters.
Okay,
There's no versions and all the stuff.
Okay, so, well, look, we've come to an end when we're discussing these things. For sure, we're going to have more discussion where we're discussing things as they unfold themselves. Obviously, we'll be listening to the news to hear what is going on because, look, we're eager for the PSL to resume so that it can conclude. Guys, I'm going to ask you guys to give me your last parting shots where you can give your handles and also your last comment. Alex.
Yeah, on Twitter it's at Alex Itole, Kaizer Chiefs, and so if maybe they want to talk soccer, not specifically about Kaizer Chiefs, but soccer in general, on Twitter it's Alex Itole.
Nhlanhla.
Yeah, on Twitter it was once skinny, ne? Was once is one word _skinny. I was saying it's basically, I speak everything sports, my man. From cricket to rugby to F1, we can engage on everything.
Okay, Goitsilwe.
On Twitter, I'm at BGKielie, BGKIELIE. I'm on sports also, on sports, all types of sports, cricket, soccer, rugby, everything. Vet supporter for now. Bafana Bafana, Manchester United. And the one thing I want to say is what? Maybe the league will be abandoned. The Chiefs will take the league.
Never. That's why Corona came. They saw who was on top of the league. They came. Corona.
PSL has no plan. So PSL has no plan to tell you the truth. So maybe the league will be abandoned. And you know that we must.
If it's abandoned, it's null and void.
They give us the league, man. We've been on top since September. Give us the league.
It might be
That's why
abandoned.
Corona came through. They saw something is wrong here.
Yeah. PSL has no plan to finish the league, so it might be abandoned. And then.
Well, guys, there you have it. It's the Master Tactician fan signing out. You heard the views from the guys, Goitsilwe, Alex, and Nhlanhla, who obviously have given them their thorough opinion on matters that we discussed today. Look, if you have a say, if you want to comment, you know what to do. You can comment, you can like, you can do anything. Just come and share us, give us your take on what we just discussed. It's the Master Tactician fan signing out. Football Stalkers. Cheers, guys.